Welcome to U.S. News Source Channel. Operations of the armed forces of Ukraine give results. This time, thanks to successful operations, the Svatov-Kreminna highway near the Chernopopovka region was advanced. The intensity of the operations for this line in Donbass is increasing day by day. Once the dominance of the critical highway is achieved, Russia's shipment flow will almost completely stop. Mutual attacks between the two armies for this land route have increased in recent days. As a result of the operations of the Ukrainian army at the front, successes were achieved in the Krasnopolivka region, another important region nearby. Then the Ukrainian troops managed to advance in this area. If the Ukrainian armed forces can continue their success on this front, the most critical land corridor in the east can be taken under control. In this way, the flow of Russian soldiers to Donbass will be completely stopped. It is known that these regions are of critical importance for Kiev and Moscow. For these reasons, if dominance is achieved at this critical point, the Russian soldiers will not have much chance regarding the regions. This will lead to successive defeats. Moreover, the fact that many regions on these fronts are very close to the Russian border causes concern on the part of Moscow. Because various moves have been carried out against military points on Russian soil many times before. If the Ukrainian army gains more dominance and superiority on the eastern front, the war can now spread further into Russian territory. At the same time, Russia's casualties increase as the war continues on Ukrainian soil. The war losses of Russia reached very serious levels. The number of Russian soldiers neutralized by the Ukrainian forces exceeded 90,000. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine continues to announce the latest casualties of Russian forces. Ukrainian troops destroyed 1 helicopter, 2 drones, 1 artillery system, 6 armored combat vehicles, 1 tank and 23 vehicles and tankers of the Russian troops. It is also shared that the Ukrainian forces neutralized 650 Russian soldiers in just one day, increasing the total number of Russian soldiers neutralized since the beginning of the war to 90,090. It was also reported that Russia suffered the biggest losses on the Lyman and Bakhmut fronts. On these fronts, there has been a visible Ukrainian army superiority in recent days. It is known that, especially in the last days, mutual artillery duels took place on the Bakhmut front and hundreds of shots were fired every day. Moreover, a tank operation can be launched on this front at any time. The Ukrainian Air Force, which has been increasing its successful moves since the beginning of the war, launched an attack on 8 points where the Russian forces, their weapons and military equipment, 2 areas where the Russian anti-aircraft missile systems are located, and the Platoon Fortress. In addition, the rocket and artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces struck a Russian air defense system, 2 ammunition depots, 5 checkpoints, 9 points where Russian forces and weapons were located, and 4 other important Russian targets. These hit Russian military points were decommissioned and many engulfed in flames. Moscow's losses become irreparable. In response, Russia carried out attacks on Ukrainian territory during the day. Russian forces reportedly carried out 13 airstrikes on the positions of Ukrainian forces. It also carried out 4 missile attacks on the infrastructure in the regions of Dnipro and Zaporizhia. Russian troops also reportedly carried out more than 10 multiple launch rocket system attacks to attack the infrastructure of Kherson, the vicinity of Antonivka and the positions of Ukrainian forces on the contact line. If Russia's attacks on infrastructures continue, military support for Ukraine will increase, while sanctions against Moscow will increase. This has a great influence on the course of the war. The fact that Russia, which has been dealing with serious problems for months due to sanctions, is subject to more sanctions may cause it to have to withdraw even from the war. Because he may not have significant military resources at any moment. This causes the attack and defense power to decrease even more gradually. As it is known, Russian troops have focused more on a few fronts, especially in the last 4 months. Although this increased its shipments to the fronts, the inadequacy of the mobilized soldiers on the fronts and military equipment shortages also made it more difficult to achieve success. On top of all this, with the sudden operation of the Ukrainian army, the attacks of the Russian troops on many fronts were repelled and many of them were neutralized. Moreover, especially with the seizure of logistics points on the Eastern Front, the Russian soldiers began to have more and more difficulties. At the same time, it is seen that the operations on the Zaporizhzhia front are increasing day by day and action is taken against the Russian military points in the region. Moreover, it is known that there is a nuclear facility on this front and there are many Russian soldiers stationed at this facility. According to the statements, Russia is ready to leave the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant on one condition. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, has been a significant danger since the beginning of the war. At the beginning of the war, the nuclear power plant came under the control of Russian forces and became dangerous. Russia kept weapons and soldiers around the nuclear power plant and carried out attacks on Ukraine from here. Despite the warnings of the whole world to Russia, Russia did not leave this region. But now he can leave. Ukraine's national energy company, Energodom, recently reported that Russia may be preparing to exit the region. More details have now been shared. Russia is ready to leave the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant area, which is under Russian control, in exchange for ensuring uninterrupted gas and oil transit through Ukrainian territory. It is alleged that Russia is ready to leave the nuclear power plant environment but is not considering leaving the Zaporizhzhia Oblast entirely. It is also reported that Russia is considering transferring the nuclear power plant to the Ukrainian authorities or the International Atomic Energy Agency. It is stated that Russia will leave this region only if uninterrupted gas and oil transit from Ukraine is guaranteed. It is claimed that the reason why Russia is ready for an agreement on this issue and is considering concessions is because oil and gas sales are very important to Russia's budget. But the response from Russia is surprising. Dmitry Peskov, Secretary of State of the Russian Federation, in his statement denied the possibility of such an agreement. However, it may seem possible for Russia to enter into such an agreement for the sale of oil and gas after the sanctions. In addition, this new information supports the claims of Ukraine's Energodom company that Russia is considering leaving the region. If Russia leaves this region, the Ukrainian army will be able to gain greater advances and advantages on the front. Ukraine continues to receive Western support. The last support to reach Ukraine is from Spain. The Spanish government gave Ukraine the first Hawk anti-aircraft missile systems. Statements on the subject were made by the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Alexei Reznikov. Reznikov reported that Spanish Defense Minister Margarita Robles was hosted in Odessa and visited the region. He announced that Spain continues to support Ukraine. He also stated that Spain will train more Ukrainian soldiers. Hawk anti-aircraft missile systems are a medium-range system manufactured in the United States. According to Western analysts, the Hawk anti-aircraft missile system estimates the probability of hitting air targets at 85%. The supply of these weapons is an important development for Ukraine's defense. Ukraine is gaining strength with the support it receives day by day. If such supports are continued, it will become much more difficult for Russian soldiers to gain an advantage or attack on the fronts. Now both countries need to be very careful. Every step taken and every decision made will be very effective in determining the fate of countries regarding the war. If Russia's erroneous advances and Ukraine's successful progress continue, the war will take a completely different turn. This may make Moscow regret that it started the war. A very strategic advance on both sides has also become a must. There is no room for error on either side anymore. Otherwise, one side's fault will become the other side's advantage. We'll see what happens in the next few days. We have reached the end of another video. You can support us by liking the video. You can easily follow new videos by subscribing. I wish you all a war-free day. See you.